Welcome to AMP, the platform for multisport age group athletes to showcase their journeys. Welcome along to episode 6. My name's Richard Conway, and I can't believe that it's 6 episodes already. Before we get going with a really good chat, I'd really like to thank all of you listening to the podcast. It's really much appreciated. And also a big thanks to the age groupers that have been on the show and those that are waiting to come on. It's been a fun few weeks. Finally got back to running after a calf strain, and after being doing a few rides each week, sometimes outside, sometimes on Zwift. Last weekend, I did my first virtual standard distance duathlon, and it was held by Nick Price, who's been on episode 2 of our show. He hosts the virtual duathlons on Facebook each weekend. Nick organises a variety of races you can do, from a You Can Do It duathlon, sprint through to standard duathlon. Well, I'm not going to lie, it was tough, but I got through it without any reoccurrence of the niggle, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. So check out the races, find them on Facebook at the Virtual Duathlon page and have a go. So on this episode, we chat to Sarah Harding. An unbelievable journey from a deep-rooted sporting background throughout her childhood and into adulthood. A knee injury sidelined the enjoyment and the ambition. 2 operations and recovery later, Sarah entered her first triathlon, only to find out that she was 8 weeks pregnant. Needless to say, she pulled out of that event. Fast forward to January 2019, Sarah became a mum. But with the onset of postnatal depression, Sarah turned back to running and then to triathlon to help her cope. We'll listen to how she fast-tracked from her first triathlon in April 2019, trying a variety of triathlon and duathlon races, spanning just 7 months, and culminating in a silver medal at the ETU Duathlon in Punta Umbria. In her own words, she's a complete novice. She's a natural swimmer, but a preferred runner. And so far, she claims that she's just made it up. So when we get back to racing, I for one am intrigued to see how far this mum can go. Hi, how are you?
All right, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
You're the first female we've had on, actually.
Oh,
How's that?
that seems to be better.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've had to. I'm in the extension on the house, and it's a different Wi-Fi signal. Normally, I'm in the study, but I've got my two sons home.
Yeah.
On lockdown, and one of them's the bedroom's right above the study, so I thought it would be a bit quiet here.
Whatever. Yeah, I don't mind. To be fair, it's
yeah.
all right.
So how's things?
Yeah, all right. I guess it's one of those. It's tricky, isn't it? Like during lockdown, it's all a bit different. So I guess we'll see what happens in the coming weeks. But yeah.
Yeah. So what do you do for a living, and how's lockdown affected you?
So I work at the university, so I'm a researcher. So realistically, I work from home anyway, so it's not really changed. Although it has, in the sense that even though I work from home normally, it's much harder to have motivation now, even though nothing's really changed.
Yeah.
So I've been lucky in that sense. Like I've been able to work relatively normally, but my daughter's 17 months, so trying to work around her has been a little bit more challenging.
Yeah.
So there's been, at the start I wasn't getting any work done, whereas now I've got it a bit more better because she can now go back to nursery. It's kind of a little bit more normal.
Yeah.
So not too bad.
So
Pardon?
Nursery's back open now then?
Yeah, they opened on the 1st of June, so she's going back a few days a week. So it's kind of quite nice to offload to be able to do.
Cool.
I've been training mainly in the evening, and like when she's gone to bed and stuff, which has not my preferred time of day to train, but never mind.
You've got to when you're a parent, you've got to fit it in when you can, haven't you?
Yeah, definitely.
Realistically. Okay, so if you'd like to tell us a little bit about yourself, where you are in the UK, and a little bit about your upbringing and sporting background, up to, I suppose, recently when you've started doing triathlons and duathlons.
Yeah, so I live in Durham, so in the northeast of England. I moved here when I was 7, so before that I was in Yorkshire. And I've always been sporty. I've always been that person that's played every sport possible. Usually played them to quite a decent level. So when I was a child, my main sport was tennis. And during that time, I travelled nationally, playing tournaments all over England and Scotland. Was ranked quite high up in sort of the UK sort of rankings at the time, and that was my life. You know, I played a lot of other sports as well, but tennis was my main thing. I was training sort of 10, 15, even sometimes 20 hours a week for that.
Wow.
And really, what stopped me from taking it further was the cost of it. So ultimately, I've changed an expensive sport as a junior for an expensive sport now. You know, it was a limiting factor. I also played lots of other sports. I played netball, I played athletics, I did everything that was possibly available to me, and that's always been part of my life. And really, throughout my 20s, my main sport was kind of netball. So I played for a club in Newcastle, sort of in the Premiership League, so that's like the league below, like the Super League, so like the sort of semi-professional level in the UK, and I enjoyed it. I did enjoy the sort of team nature of it, but then to 2016, I snapped my ACL playing netball, so
Ouch.
it's one of those. Yeah, it's one of those injuries that I think every netballer is aware of. It's strangely, I dreamt about doing it before every match, and then it happened, and I knew exactly what happened. It just kind of went completely. So 2 knee operations later, I tried a brief stint at returning to netball, but it wasn't. I think I was afraid of it happening again, and it was so painful. The recovery and the operations were so intense. But anyway, so that kind of led me to the time where I became pregnant. And as I said, I've always been active. So throughout my pregnancy, I was really keen to be active all the time. The day that I went into hospital, went for a run that morning. So it's always been part of who I am. And my daughter was born January 2019. And basically, when I was pregnant, I'd entered my first ever triathlon. Okay. I didn't know I was pregnant when I entered it, and I was like, it was due to take place when I was, I think, about 8 weeks pregnant, and I ended up not doing it because I was feeling horrendous at the time, and it was really hot, and I didn't really want to kind of anything to happen to me. So I didn't enter that, and I was really disappointed because I knew that I could have done.
Can I just ask which triathlon that was?
It was just a local one in the northeast. It was a Punta
Umbria
Triathlon, and my brother took my place, and I was really gutted that I couldn't do it. And looking at people's times and looking at what you know, the winning female, I was like, I could definitely have got close to that, and it kind of made me kind of really not regret, but not be able to do it really upset me in a way. So then after having my daughter, like I'll be honest and say that I really struggled mentally at the start. Like, it was a really shock to the system, and I think a lot of women are in the same position. And there was difficulties where I really struggled for a bit of time with postnatal depression, and I think the change to my lifestyle from that freedom to go and train whenever I wanted to go and do whatever I wanted to then have this baby that needed you 24 hours a day was hard. And after 5 weeks, I was able to go for a run, and that was the best run of my life in terms of I remember it was a February day, and it was beautifully sunny and warm in Durham, which was quite remarkable. But it was the best run. It wasn't fast at all, but it was like the most amazing run for releasing those endorphins and sort of like getting the serotonin going. And from that point, it just really highlighted how me training and having a focus was crucial for my own well-being. So fast forward a little bit to maybe the end of March, beginning of April, I think, I entered my first ever proper triathlon to actually do it.
And that was the
Ashington sprint. It was a pool-based swim, but sprint triathlon. And my friend had done it the previous year, so I kind of knew what it was all about, and I kind of knew where I was going. So I had 4 weeks maybe of like training to think of doing a triathlon. I don't think I swam. Maybe I swam twice in that time. And I've always kind of been a runner, so the running's my favourite part. But no, I entered it, and it was freezing, absolutely freezing. It was raining, and I remember getting to the car park to set up, and overnight my tyre had deflated in the car, and I'm not a particularly technical person with bikes, so I was freaking out because there was no air in it, and my pump wasn't working, and it was just a bit of a calamitous kind of start to the day at 5 o'clock. But did it, and I think I came fourth overall, and I think I was second in my age group, and that was kind of without any training, with nothing, and it kind of got me hooked. I think that actually this is something that I could possibly be quite good at. So yes, that was kind of how I started entering the triathlon world, relatively accidentally, really. Like I said, I've always been a decent runner, and running's always been my thing to go to, but it just was kind of like, well, what can I do? Where can I get that release and those endorphins that I needed? And triathlon seemed to be the answer, really, and that's where the journey started.
Okay. So how did you, obviously you had your tennis and then your netball and then you love running, like you say. So how did the swimming and the cycling sort of fit in? How did that, because it's such a short period, isn't it, from giving birth to your daughter and thinking about that triathlon, but how did that come about and integrate? Running, you can just go out and run, can't you? But biking, did you have a bike?
I did have a bike. My dad is like my sort of go-to mechanic. He loves bikes. So I had a bike that was through him. It was a good bike, but it wasn't a bike that was necessarily right for me. Yeah. So for my birthday last year, which is in April, I bought myself a bike. So I got a bike for this triathlon and started it. And it's the bike that I still use now. I do need a new bike. But so my relationship with cycling is kind of, I'm growing to like it a lot more. I think I was very, very nervous at the start. Obviously I can ride a bike and I'm cardiovascularly fit. So it was kind of just learning time on the bike was what I really needed over like last summer. Yeah. So I think with relation to swimming, it's a hard one. I've always been a good swimmer, like a relatively strong swimmer, but I've never had coaching. I've never had any sort of like intervention into it. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of just a bit of luck, really, that I was growing up with parents that swim and that are really active, and I was taught to swim and was quite fortunate that I was a good swimmer without ever really having done it. So it was
You're a natural.
You could say that, but I don't want to sort of admit that. But it's
nothing wrong with admitting it. Some people are just blessed, aren't they, with that sort of ability.
You could say that I sort of have taken to it relatively naturally. But no, it's. I think definitely you could say that obviously running's my preferred, and I enjoy the fact that it's the last discipline because it always means that you end on a high for me. Yeah. I'd say I probably feel like I get stronger as the disciplines go on. So swimming, I much prefer open water swimming to pool swimming. It's just that freedom, I think, to be outside and to be in the open space is much more interesting to me. Yeah. But I kind of enjoy that sort of trying to pick people off, particularly in the run, but also through the bike if possible. Although it does annoy me when some people who are phenomenal on the bike still come zooming past me. But no, it's I enjoy that sort of the challenge of on the run in particular, charging past people.
Yeah. So you had your first try planned and you didn't do it. How did you come about training for that actual event, even though you didn't do it? What was the process? When did you first start swimming? Were you swimming in a pool? Are you part of a club? And then the biking, how did it all sort of like shape together? Because it's such a, like I said, such a relatively short time that you've actually done this. It's amazing. And when I read your email, I was like, wow, that's fantastic.
To be honest, I think I just made it up. Like, I really...
Great answer.
I think I didn't know what I was doing really. Like I knew I could run, so that was kind of a given. And I knew that I was fit on a bike, but I was so tense. I just was like, well, what time have I got available? I'll go and try. I'll try this. I'll try that. I'll just see. I think again, my swimming at the start was just, I'm going to go in the pool, I'll swim. There was no sort of like structure to it at all. The same way with a bike, like I'll go for a bike ride. I probably still am, to be honest, terrified of like something going wrong on the bike. Like I probably shouldn't admit this, but I can just about change a tyre. So it's kind of like, if anything does go wrong, it's kind of, I'm quite scared of that. So yeah, so then after the first triathlon that I did, I joined my local tri club, which is Durham Tri Club.
Okay.
And the head coach there has been fantastic in really kind of taking me under his wing a little bit and trying to educate me in how to train a little bit more, because even though I kind of was a runner, like I just run, I don't really sort of like...
There's no method to it. Yeah.
No, and it's always worked pretty well for me. So I was doing sort of like some of the club sessions and some of this club training and trying to sort of understand how to train for a triathlon, because like you say, I just made it up. And I was making it up all last summer. And it was only really in October, but not even in October, that I kind of was like, I probably need to do something about this, because, if I'm going to take it seriously, I need to actually have a proper program, a proper sort of rationale underpinning what I was doing, rather than just making it up. And I think also my natural propensity is to favour running, so I would always want to do more running in a week than all the rest of it. In October, I kind of made the decision to I approached Tim at Catenary Cycling Coaching, and he's kind of created sort of like a training program for me that's mindful of everything. And I was reluctant in October to kind of fully engage with that, to be honest. I think I liked my freedom, and I liked the ability to choose what I did rather than having that structure. But then since Christmas, and since, I'm sure I'll get onto it, like I've really sort of stuck since lockdown to this plan religiously. And actually having that structure has really allowed me in these really weird times to feel productive and to feel like it's working. And I do feel infinitely stronger now than I did. But I think I think the flip side of me kind of just winging it last summer was that I really enjoyed it. Like I really genuinely loved going out and running, or going out on my bike, and the races were really fun, because it was kind of, what can I do now? Like how can I improve? And it was the learning curve was massive, and that was just really exciting. But I definitely know that I made a huge mistake in overtraining. So coming off obviously being pregnant, I was fit, as proved by like what I did quite early on, but my natural inclination is to do too much and to myself too much. And I think triathlons are really, in multisport, that's a problem, obviously. Like, and it's a good thing, but it also can lead to quite negative things. And I think probably I was overtrained from about August last year. I just wanted to do more and more and more to get better and better and better, and that obviously wasn't helpful. So I think pre-Christmas and into sort of the new year, I was really sort of struggling sort of physically in terms of like overtraining, but also I was just picking up infection after infection. So we tried to reduce my training load, and we tried to do it, but it just wasn't, I just couldn't kick it. So actually when I went into the race at the age group in Spain, I was really quite still unwell. So yes, that makes it kind of even a bit more kind of I wouldn't say impressive, but actually I wasn't in peak fitness at all. And then to kind of come away with what I did was quite, reassuring, really. So I think I definitely have been winging it, but now I've got Tim as my coach, and I've got like the insight of like people that I know that are providing me with a program that should hopefully manage those loads. And I will confess to being an absolute novice in terms of I don't understand what I'm doing. I just do it.
But that comes with experience. And like I said, because you've been in such a short time, and you've come so far in that time, to have done what you've done is incredible. So just going back to your overtraining, do you think the overtraining was brought on by the postnatal depression because your training made you feel better, so you did more of it? Would that be?
I think that, yeah, I think very possibly that could do. Like, I think the release and the endorphins that I got from training really became that addictiveness of, well, I can do this, or it, like, in a weird way, I felt like being good at something again that was outside of being a mother. Gave me a sense of identity back. And I think those issues with identity, when you first kind of like, when your whole world is turned upside down, are really difficult. Like, I'd always been sporty. I'd always been, really good at sport and really good at, and that was my identity, and that was taken away. And I think I really relished having that back, in a sense that I could prove to myself that I was capable. So I think, I did. I think it was naivety because I didn't know what I was doing, but also I wanted to just have that space for myself. And I think as well, sometimes if you know you've only got an hour, I personally will do 110% in that hour because it's a short period of time, rather than thinking what your body. I'm awful at like trying to think about what my body wants and needs. And it's also linked that back to like nutrition as well. Like I've really started to think more about how I'm fueling, and that's been really key as well to actually understanding what I need to do. So it's a combination, but I think it's really interesting that could it have been linked to the postnatal depression, in that was my escape. And I think you're right. Yeah,
it just came to me when you were talking there. I made a note and linked the two things together so I could remember to ask you the question. So it's great then that you found something that helps, because a lot of women, a lot of new mums don't, do they? They just haven't got that out. So it's that's really good. Not only that you like it, but it's also helped from that mental point of view. And how is the baby? How is motherhood?
No, the baby's great. She's like 17 months now, and she's walking and running everywhere, and so she's great. I think it's really important for me that she knows that being active is normal. So like, I mean, it's awful. I come back in for a run or something, and I'm so sweaty, and she wants a big hug, and I'm a bit like, oh, you don't want to come anywhere near me. But actually, she sees me in that state, and that's normalising it for her.
And she doesn't care.
No. Where I work, my research looks at sort of gender and physical activity and barriers to participation, really. So like how young women are maybe put off being active. So it's kind of like, well, that's all interlinked as well. That I want to set a good example for her as well, that to be a role model, that being active is normal. I
think being a parent myself of two adults now, 23 and 26, I think just being around a parent that does that sort of thing, and both myself and my wife do triathlons, and I've done for quite a lot of years now. It just rubs off, it just does. My youngest, before he left, he played football for a long time, and then he obviously stopped that and had enough of it because he played it from 6 to 16, 10 years, and then he saw what we were doing, and he wanted to have a go, and he did, and he's come back now to live during lockdown from Australia, and he's back out running and biking. And my eldest lad, he's just come back for a week, and he's took up running, and he's not run before. He's been mainly into his board sport. So they do take on board what you're doing, and they like us all. We just want to sort of like be what our parents are, don't we? And you know. So I think without even trying, that'll probably happen with your daughter. Being around that environment, I think it's a given, really.
That's what happened to me with my parents. So hope, pass that on. That'll be a good outcome.
Did your first triathlon, and you did well in your age group. That was at Ashington, did you say?
Yes.
So what was next after Ashington? What did you have anything to aim for did you decide? And the other question is, how did you come across age group?
So after Ashington, I kind of was like, well, what can I do next? So obviously trawled through the British Triathlon website to try and see what else was there. Again, just sort of like muddling my way into it. And I thought, I was happy with the pool swim because that was what the Ashington one was, but I was a bit bored by it because obviously the nature of it meant that you weren't racing with everyone. You were kind of only racing with your group. And So I was like, well, okay, my next challenge then is open water. So and I didn't at that point fancy a sea swim. So I was like, well, what else can I do? So I was trying to like look through ones. And at that time as well, because of my newness to it, I was looking more at sprints. Again, because whilst I can swim and I'm an okay swimmer, I was just like, I don't want to feel extended too far by a longer swim. So I chose the Harrogate, the Wetherby Triathlon, which was a river swim.
All right.
And so again, it was a sprint distance, and which obviously made me. I had to then go and buy a tri suit. Yeah, so I got my wetsuit. I don't think I ever went into. I didn't actually swim in it before the race.
Right.
I practiced taking it on and off, like on dry land, and like visualizing my transitions. But I'm trying to think back. I don't think I actually used it in open water for the race. So I turned up to the Wetherby Triathlon, and they set off the standard distance first. I should also say that in the first, like, I genuinely felt terrified at all of these first races, because obviously I didn't know what I was doing. I genuinely didn't know how to act at all in the transition at all. In the first one that I did, like, because of my swim time, I was with the people that were actually good at these things. And so I rock up into transition, had no idea where to put things, no idea, and everyone around me were these professionals, in my opinion, and I just felt so stupid. But anyway.
Everybody does. Everybody goes through it.
Yeah. No, I think it's all a bit of a bluff, isn't it?
Of course it is. Yeah, because you can never experience race day, can you? To be fair, until you do one.
So I got down to Wetherby, watched the standard distance go off in the river, and I just was like, oh crikey, what have I let myself in for? We then set up, and it was cold. I can't think. It was a relatively cold river at that time. It was a bit sort of not tidal, but there was obviously a flow to it. So we were going against the flow for the first bit, and then had a 180 degrees U-turn. And the competitive person in me wasn't going to be that person that just sat at the back and just let people swim out in front of me and just sort of like take it up. That's not going to happen. So I kind of positioned myself like sort of on the outside, but sort of like relatively near the front. And it was the worst 2 minutes of my life. Like, I don't give up on things. I would never give up, but I was very, very close to walking out of that river. I think I was dunked about 4 times in the first 100 metres. Yeah. And I just didn't know what to do. I genuinely did not know. I just couldn't get my breath, and it was just really traumatic. But then by the time I got into my stroke, which was probably about 400 metres into the 750, it was actually relatively pleasant, and I quite enjoyed it. So it was kind of like a really strange. But I wasn't racing for the first 400 metres because I was just trying to survive in like a weird way. But no, so that was, really kind of eye-opening and in a way scary. But then obviously got onto my bike, felt okay, felt quite good. It was quite a windy course, got onto the run, and then because of the time difference between when the standard start and the sprint started, we were all kind of doing the run at the same time. So it did mean that there was always people to chase down. And so the run was great because I was just picking people off. And in that one again, I came 4th again. So there's a bit of a history to like my season. It was like I kept on coming 4th and 4th and 4th. I was like, when am I ever going to kind of challenge this? But again, there was people that were like, really experienced in that. And I just thought, well, this is still amazing to have done that.
Really good.
And it was fun, but it was like that first open water river swim was just, I don't think I'll ever forget it. And from then I just thought, well, what else can I enter? Trying to sort of like see what else was out there. So that was Maybank holiday last year. In the June, I entered one in South Shield. Somewhere Whitley Bay, I think. And then saw that there was a standard try at Woodhorn in Ashington. So that was also doubling up as the age group qualifier. And I was like, well, I'll see, because that's obviously local to me. From what I understand now, it's not often that there are qualifiers up in the northeast. So, so I was like, right, well, I'll go to Woodhorn, better people to race against, see how I fare there. And then like my coach was like, well, the coach of the tri club was like, well, have you entered to qualify? I was like, well, I don't know what that means. Like, I don't know what to do. So I managed to sort of like, I was like, well, I'll give it a go. Who knows? I'll enter. So I did. So that was my fourth ever triathlon, and it was my first ever standard tri. And the swim was so long. Like, I just hated every second of it. But yeah, again, so that was obviously much better people to race against. And I ended up qualifying then for the standard triathlon for the Europeans that was supposed to be in 3 weeks' time in Tartu. So I was kind of completely shocked, really, that I was able to qualify.
Yeah.
I think we got the fourth qualifying position, but still, I was like, well, this is quite
automatic qualification. Yeah. Brilliant.
Yeah, I'll take that.
Brilliant.
But actually, in that sort of time, the swim was long and hard. The bike was obviously longer than what I'd done before, but it was quite pleasant. But it was having that longer run at the end. I was like, this is great. It meant that I had much more time, and it was so much more, that distance seemed to really fit me much better. So I'd annoyingly entered a few more sprint tries to try and just over the summer. So I did the red car, the draft legal one. Sea swim.
Was it all right this year? Because I did it 2 years ago and it was horrendous.
It was. I was told that it wasn't as bad as when 2 years ago. It was still up and down and quite bad. I mean, I quite like that though, because it means that you're concentrating on something other than swimming rather than focusing on the monotony of it. But no, that was. So I thought. I kind of took last year as I'm going to try all these things and see what I like. So I tried a sprint, I tried a standard distance, I'd done a pool, a river, a lake and a sea swim. I'll try a sprint, a draft legal race. Yeah.
And how did that go? Did you enjoy it?
Yes and no. It was different. Yeah. It was very different. And
it's a different type of racing, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think it obviously requires different skills to what you've got. I think partly a bit of element of luck as well as to who you come out of the sea with, as to where you're positioned. It was interesting. It was different. I wouldn't say because I prefer, I think, the longer distances now. I'm not quite sure. Yeah, I don't know, but it was interesting. It was an experience that I enjoyed, and again came fourth in that one. So I was kind of like getting this sort of repeated fourth position. So that was a little bit frustrating, but again, really enjoyable. 2 weeks later, I think it was. I'd seen that there was the duathlon at the Try on the Tyne that was organised by Steve Cram's.
Oh yes,
organisation. So I was like, oh, not done a duathlon. We'll try that. Again, didn't know what I was doing at all, because obviously you don't have the swim, so you've got less stuff, and you need to think about where your trainers need to be and all this. So did that one, and that was I loved it. It was so lovely. Like, it was nice to know. I lived in Newcastle for a while, so I knew the course like the back of my hand, and it was just really nice.
Whereabouts is it in Newcastle? Because we lived up there a long time ago. We both worked up there, so we know it quite well also.
So you started outside the Baltic.
Yeah.
On that road. So you went the run. So it started there, went over the swing bridge, and then you took a left, and it took you down past, down towards the industrial estate at the bottom. And then you came back, and the first run was 2 laps of that. You went over the swing bridge, not swing bridge, it's the Millennium Bridge. Yeah. And that was 2 loops. And then the bike was basically from just behind the law courts all the way down to the bottom end of the sort of where the industrial estate is, and back 6 times.
So it was relatively flat then.
There was a hill at the end of the bike.
Yeah.
But it was so there's one steep hill, but the rest of it was quite flat. And it was nice. It was good. So I think in that, I come off the run in second, and then took the girl over in the first maybe 400 meters of the bike, and then just kept going, and just I think I won by about 13 minutes. Brilliant. Which was quite, and then I was like, this is great, I've won, and obviously, I've taken that fourth and just sort of shoved it in the bin. So that was my first sort of taste of actually properly winning, and actually I felt like duathlons were more my kind of thing. You know, it played into my strengths more.
Yeah.
So from then I was like, well, okay, I've got one more challenge. The challenge I'd set myself was I'd entered a half Ironman.
Right.
So I thought that can be like the end of my season. I can finish off in style, and you know I've achieved it. And so that was set for. I did the Ironman, the Outlaw X down in Nottinghamshire in September. So I was kind of building my training to that again, just making it up. Like I knew I could run a half marathon, so that wasn't necessarily a problem. It was kind of building up the time on the bike. And the swim wasn't much longer than what a standard swim was. So I was like, I can do this, it's fine. Again, did that, really enjoyed the distance. You know, actually, it was hard, obviously, but it was really enjoyable. And again, another fourth in my age group. But I was really pleased with. I think it was just over 5 hours that I did it in, so I was like really chuffed with that.
Really good time.
And I finished off with a 1:35 half marathon. So, you know, in total, I was kind of like, that's quite an achievement. But I think, clued into the fact that we discussed like my overtraining, I didn't allow myself the time to properly recover afterwards. Like I think I had a couple of days off, and then I was like, right, I'll go for a run or something, rather than allowing. I don't think I appreciated how much it would have taken out of my body, really. But I thought, well, from there, it's sort of like, and linking to sort of like the duathlon experience, I was like, right, well, I'll see what other qualifiers are out there. Like, why not? And there was the third and final qualifier at Bedford for the duathlon. It was I think it was maybe the 10th of October. So there was about 2-3 weeks between the half Ironman distance and the duathlon. And I was umming and ahhing as to whether to do it or not, whether to enter, because, you know, Bedford's not exactly close to Durham. And did I need to do it? What would be the benefits of it? And I had people saying to me, oh, Sarah, it's fine. Just sort of like end the season now, and you've done amazing. Why do you need to do this and make it harder for yourself? So, but if I could qualify, then why wouldn't I? You know, why would I not do it? So anyway, so I trekked down to Bedford. It was torrential rain for the whole of the whole period. There were 6-inch puddles before we even started. You know, it was all, and everything was just absolutely dripping wet. And it was I thoroughly enjoyed the race. You know, it was kind of like, it was good. It was a boring course because it was just around the racetrack, because there was nothing to take in. But it was fun. I mean, but then there's me here sort of like coming off the run quite high up, and then get taken over by people on the bike, and then try and catch them up again. But it was on the bike, and I was still on my bog standard sort of low-key racing bike that I got for the first triathlon, and I hadn't even had it fitted, so it didn't. I obviously was in a bit of a bad position on it, and like a man on a souped up tri bike came past me and was like, "You need to get some tri bars." I was like, "Yeah, cheers for that," but like, it was very true, and then. But
not what you need to hear at that time.
No, it wasn't. Not when it was like absolutely torrential rain, and I was like not enjoying life at that moment. But I was like, well, yes, I do, I know, but anyway. So that was, I qualified as qualifier 1 from that. So that was obviously really rewarding, and you know, it made the 3 and a bit hour drive down in the torrential rain and back at least a bit more rewarding. And that obviously meant that I qualified to go to Spain, which was in March. And to answer the question about like how did I get to know about the age group stuff, I didn't really. It was kind of not on my radar at all. It was just, oh, these people are doing this. Well, if they can do it, I can do it. And that sort of competitive drive led me to go and try and find out what it was and what it involved. So it was kind of fell into it again just by luck, really. So 2 qualifiers, and then in this year, and then obviously selected to go to the one in Spain, which is in March.
And did you enjoy Spain? Punta Umbria?
Yeah, no, I did really enjoy it. I just didn't know what to expect at all. So it was all very new, all very kind of exciting. To be honest, I really enjoyed being away for a weekend and having like a bit of time. I know I was racing, but a bit of time to myself and a bit of time to like just experience it all. And it was like it was a lovely like area to go in.
It was beautiful, wasn't it?
Yeah, really, really lovely. And it was lovely to be on the bike. Like that bike course was stunning. Like in terms of like the quality of the road, I was like, can we not have roads like this in the UK?
Yeah.
But no, it was good. It was fun. Like it was a really nice experience. It's strange looking back now, thinking that what we now know in terms of coronavirus and lockdown, that we were in Spain, like the week before it all shut down. That's weird.
It is.
And the fact that we actually got to race is bonkers.
Yeah.
But I don't know about you, but I was kind of there and I didn't even really think about it. Like I wasn't really.
It was sort of just unfolding though, wasn't it? As we were, we were in our own little bubble in Spain, and we were in Lanzarote a couple of days before. We'd been there for 3 weeks, and it was just starting to break. And we thought, well, are we gonna go or not? What's gonna happen? And we were allowed to go, so we went, like yourself. And but when we were there, we didn't really think about it. And it was only as we were leaving, it was like, well, are we gonna get home? And but it all worked out fine, and we got home. And then once we got back, that was it. It just all hell broke loose, didn't it?
Well, I remember taking an extra book just in case I was going to get stranded, but that was like more kind of as it being guessed rather than actually seriously. But no, it's weird now. We are very fortunate to have actually been able to race that. Yeah, so I think it was bizarre. It was strange. Like the lead up to it was interesting because, like I said, with being overtrained and not having illness after illness, it was really hard to reshape my expectations in a way. I was kind of, if I'd have been fully fit, coming as qualifier 1 from the 3rd qualifier, I was kind of like, well, in that situation, I could win it. Like I could win this, and that was what I was aiming for.
Yeah.
And I didn't really communicate that to anyone. I didn't really speak to say that's what I'm going to do. But being ill, it was kind of like, well, what am I? And people said, oh, just get round or just enjoy it because we know you've been ill. Just take it as a learning experience. Blah 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 blah. And it was really hard for me to kind of. Is that what what am I capable of? Because I just didn't know. Because I didn't know. I'd not done any training past an hour before doing it. I was kind of like, I just don't know what I can do, and that was really weird to kind of have to reframe your whole experience, which is very different to how you are normally as a person. Like I would never say, oh, I'll just settle for finishing. Like that's not who I am. But that's kind of what I was going in with because I just didn't know how I was going to respond. Yeah, and it was a really funny race actually because on the start line I felt okay, I felt fine, and then went off so fast on the run. I think it was obviously all the adrenaline.
Yep.
Like, and I normally go off fast on the run anyway, but not that fast. And so then I think I was 3rd or 4th overall coming off the run, so I was in a good position. But I was like, crikey, I'm tired. And so I think even before the first 10k run had finished, I was like, okay, I'm running on empty here. And I think it was just I'd not had put the training in. I wasn't fit. Got on the bike and had a really horrendous first transition. Got onto the bike and I knew where the girl who was like my other age group person was. And from the first sort of loop of the pedals, I knew I was just going to be having to hold on. Really, that was all I could do from that point. So I was kind of trying to take as many nutrients and take as much energy on board as I possibly could. Because I was like, I'm dying. I'm absolutely dying here. And obviously, normally you die, but I'd never felt that low, like that empty. So to be fair to the Spanish girl who came first in our age group, she had a good race. But it was weird. Normally I'd get off the bike and be like, right, I'm going to chase her down. Whereas because I knew that I had nothing left, it was, where's the girl in 3rd?
Yeah.
Like, is she going to chase? Is she going to be able to catch me? And it was a strange sort of shift in psychology. Yeah. But it was fun. I don't get me wrong, I did enjoy it. It was a really amazing experience to do.
And again, that's a different experience, isn't it, that you've had before? So next time you go and race, that's another strength, an experience that you've had that you can build on. So it's really important that.
And it was so lovely having people that you'd never met before calling your name and giving you that encouragement is it was lovely. It was a nice sort of really good experience in that sense to like you say I can tick it off and you can learn from it, can't you? Because you're never gonna you're unlikely to have the perfect race the first time you do something that on that level sort of thing.
No, it doesn't. It's very, very rare. unless you're super fit and you're absolutely on it. So
Yeah.
no, that's fantastic, great achievement, and it was a great race, great place to be, and we, like you said, we were very fortunate to be there and to have done it this year after what's come and gone since everything being cancelled.
Mm.
What tips would you have for other multisporters that are doing multisport but would like to qualify to represent their country? Yeah, what advice would you give them? Because you've been quite new to the sport, it's fresh in your mind. I can ask other people, and they've been doing the sport a long time, and it's sort of like, well, how did I feel? They've got to really reflect on that. Whereas for you, it's fresh, so it'd be really interesting to hear that.
I think for me, I feel a bit sort of strange giving advice or offering my advice when I'm coming from a position completely of like naivety about it. Like, I'm not experienced enough. But at the same time, and it sounds really cliche, but like, enjoy it. Like, enjoy every second of racing. And I enjoy every second, even if I'm in the pits of no energy, but I enjoy every second of racing, and I mostly enjoy every second of training. Because it's that freedom, and if you don't enjoy it, then what's the point, kind of thing. And I think, yes, it might be a qualifying race, but then there's no real, if you want to, I don't know, if you want to do your best, it shouldn't matter whether it's a qualifying race or your local park run type or basic try. If you enjoy it, then you're going to succeed. And I think for me, I've been very naive in this whole situation. It's just happened, and that's been fantastic. But that's happened probably because I've not put pressure on myself to do it.
Yeah.
I didn't set out wanting to qualify for GB stuff. Yeah. I didn't even know what it was.
Yeah.
Even when I qualified, I didn't really know what it was. I didn't know, it was all very new. But I think I enjoyed it. And that's easier said than done, I guess, if that's your drive and your ambition is to qualify. But sometimes it's not fun, is it, going for an 80-kilometre bike ride? Or it's not fun going, But if it's not fun, don't do it. I don't know. That sounds like,
yeah, good. No, wise words. Good point. Good point. Well made. Since you've started, you've got a coach and you're in a tri club. And what other resources do you pull information from? By resources, I'm talking about books, websites, things like that.
Yeah. So actually, as part of like my coach's sort of setup, he kind of specialises really in coaching women, and there's been a few of the other athletes who've recommended reading. So it's a book called Raw by Stacey Sims.
My wife's got it, yeah.
Yeah, and it's about how women are different to men and how women shouldn't be training like small men. They should be training to suit their physiology and to really match and listen to what their body's telling them, what they're doing, to be able to train more effectively. And that really struck a chord because I don't know how, I'm very naive in that. I don't know how it's best to train. It's written sort of from a triathlon perspective as well, so it's even better. And I learned a lot there about, what's happening with your body and how your body responds to different things, and particularly how you should fuel your body and how you should do that to maximize performance. So it talks in there about sometimes women aren't as effective at metabolizing energy gels. They should largely try and eat more proper food rather than relying on drip gels. And until that point, I was like, oh, well, everything I've ever done is have had gels because that's what I thought people did, and that's what you see people do. And I was using them, and I was like, oh, this must give me energy, but was it or was it not? And it makes you kind of interrogate what you take as being taken for granted knowledge. So I've really learned a lot from that in terms of what I should be eating and when I should be eating it, and really trying to improve that side of my training, because I can control that. And I found that really enlightening and also sort of empowering, really, that small changes can make a big difference. And just think, I don't know, maybe other people are better than this, but I don't know how you can ever eat as much protein as you're supposed to be able to eat, because it's just impossible. It's having that knowledge has really helped me in terms of what I'm supposed to be doing. So that book has been great. To be honest, other than that, it's kind of, I did a sports science degree, so I kind of have a physiological knowledge of it happens to my body. So it's kind of drawing on that knowledge, but not getting too kind of caught up in it until April, maybe, end of April, maybe. I didn't really track my training at all.
Right.
Like, I just did what I wanted to do and just sort of like took it for granted that I could do it.
Yeah.
I didn't have a diary, didn't really make any notes, didn't have a watch, didn't have anything, had no technology, and I was like, maybe I'm going to have to sort of get on this Garmin bandwagon and actually purchase the watch. So I did, and to be honest, as you can see, I'm wearing it now, but like, because I was afraid of getting too caught up in the numbers, and I was afraid of becoming like obsessed with what it was telling me, and it hasn't at all. But I've actually really enjoyed now seeing a bit more about what I'm doing and seeing what the numbers mean, and that's been really helpful for me, maybe particularly during lockdown, to see that training's had a purpose or training's making a difference. I think before then as well, I was just completely, like I said, winging it. So kind of combining that sort of greater knowledge of the numbers with this greater understanding of how physiology should be listened to in a way that women are very different to men. And that's been really helpful for me.
That's a great answer. Yeah, great answer. So going back, tying in with your Garmin, what's your favourite piece of equipment that you've got?
To be honest, probably my Garmin actually now.
Yeah.
Like it's just giving me that extra bit of insight, and it's really weird. Like I feel like I'm a better athlete because I've got one. I don't know why. I'm not at all, but it just makes me feel like, I've got like a little bit of equipment on my wrist. Yeah,
yeah. I now belong.
Yeah, a little bit. I was like, everyone else when I used to race had these. I was like, well, do I need one of those watches? Does that make me better? And obviously it doesn't. No. But it's kind of like, it's really, really weird. Other than that, you probably can guess that I don't have a huge amount of equipment because I just bundle my way through at the moment. Yeah. The physio I go to would probably say that my favourite piece of equipment should be my foam roller, but it's definitely not. To be honest, I don't really know. I think I'd definitely say my Garmin, but other than that, every time I get a brand new pair of trainers, I get really excited. So I guess probably
everybody loves new trainer day.
Exactly. So I think I'd say getting new pairs of trainers and is more my favourite equipment.
Cool. What does the future hold? What do you, obviously we're in a bit of a strange place at the moment, but all things being equal, next year, what would you like to have achieved by the end of that, or what are your goals going forward?
Yeah, well, obviously having come second in my age group at the in Punta Umbria, I obviously get automatic qualification to next year. So that's taken quite a bit of pressure off. So what I'd like to do there is turn that silver into gold. Brilliant. Which I think is very much achievable. And also, that's quite exciting to see where else I can get to go and travel and see. Yeah. So that's one goal. I think I want to do another 70.3. I had eyed up the same event in September, but I don't think I'm going to feel comfortable doing that, even if it's on. So maybe that'll have to be next year. And I'd just like to kind of see how far I can actually go. Because it's all such an unknown at the moment, and what is the limit of my potential? Because I still think it's in the sort of infancy stages. So I'd like to turn the silver into gold, do another 70.3, hopefully break the 5 hours, and continue to. And it sounds so cliche and so rubbish, but continue to actually enjoy it, because it's that freedom is kind of, and the variety of doing multisport keeps it interesting. Yeah. And just sort of to still have that enjoyment of it, I think. And
also, because it's relatively new, you're still learning, aren't you? You're learning. It's going to be still a big learning curve. That's exciting as well, isn't it?
Definitely, yeah. I need to improve my transitions is what I need to do, I think.
We all do. We all do. Well, thank you ever so much for coming on and sharing that story with us. It's been brilliant. Really, really pleased to have heard it and to be able to put it out. Thank you ever so much for sparing the time, and good luck, and we may bump into each other in future races. We will come across each other, no doubt, at some qualifiers or some races for GB, so we'll look out for each other. Thanks for coming on. Been lovely to meet you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, you too.
All right,
Thank you.
Take care.
See you later.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
So, what a story so far for Sarah. Fantastic to hear she's found something that not only helps her getting her sporting identity back, but also helps her with her mental health well-being. Something I'm sure we can all relate to, and I can't wait to watch her on her age group journey when we can get back to racing. Very impressive indeed. So that's it for episode 6. Really enjoyed it, and I hope you did too. Don't forget to leave us a rating, a review, or a comment, and subscribe to our podcast. Follow us on Instagram at AMP1967, Facebook AMPGB, and Twitter AMP067. And if you want to get in touch or ask us a question, send us an email to agegroupmultisportpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks again for listening. See you next time. And don't forget, stay safe, keep training, and love the process.